What's going on, y'all? You're back. I'm your host, Paco, and I want to thank you if you're tuning in. Okay, so if you haven't heard this yet, you know what? I got a little delay here in my headphones. Just want to make sure that you guys are hearing me real clearly. It doesn't matter if it's messing up on my end. I can deal with it. But let me just go ahead and test this real quick and check to make sure that I am coming in clear for you guys, because I am tripping a little bit in my headphones. Okay, so if you haven't heard this yet, basically, what do we have here? A Daily Pulse, somebody posted, Republican Executive Committee member calls for resignation of RNC chairman Reince Priebus. Okay, let's see. Due to an alleged violation of the National GOP's Rule Number 11, bans favoritism of one candidate while more than one candidate exists, an executive committee member within the GOP calls for the resignation of RNC chairman Reince Priebus. Okay, let's see here. On May 7th, Jeffrey Bales, a member-at-large of the Pima County GOP Executive Committee in Tucson, Arizona, says, quote, due to violation of the RNC's Rule Number 11, I call for Chairman Reince Priebus to resign immediately. It is an un-American and beneath the standards established by the Republican Party to violate this rule. It is unethical to support a single Republican presidential candidate while other Republican candidates remain in the race. Further, I call upon Mitt Romney to denounce this behavior and ask that the RNC repair the breach of trust by including the other remaining Republican presidential candidate, Ron Paul, in any dispensation of funds, effort, and labor. It would benefit all Americans if Mitt Romney would further clarify the fact that two candidates remain if he challenged Dr. Ron Paul to a debate. And it goes on to say, Rule 11 states, the Republican National Committee shall not, without the prior written and filed approval of all members of the Republican National Committee from the state involved, contribute money or in-kind aid to any candidate for any public or party office except the nominee of the Republican Party or a candidate who is unopposed in the Republican primary after the filing deadline for that office. In those states where state law establishes a nonpartisan primary in which Republican candidates could participate, but in which the general election may not include a Republican candidate, the candidate endorsed by a convention held under the authority of the state Republican Party shall be recognized by the Republican National Committee as the Republican nominee. And then letter B, no state Republican Party rule or state law shall be observed that allows persons who have participated or are participating in the selection of any nominee of a party other than the Republican Party, including but not limited to through the use of a multi-party primary or similar type ballot to participate in the selection of a nominee of the Republican Party for that general election. No person nominated in violation of this rule shall be recognized by the Republican National Committee as the nominee of the Republican Party from that state. And then they have a link here to the rules for the RNC, and this comes from PR.com as the source. And yeah, man, they also have here that Ben Swan reported on Rule 11 and Rule 38. So yeah, the RNC is just pretty much trying to act like Ron Paul doesn't exist. So they're just going to go ahead and keep the perception going while the media is helping them. And we're going to get back to this article that I was talking about. I left off before the break of them speaking about Ron Paul on WashingtonTimes.com. Let's see. Okay, so we were talking about how he's saying the Paul bots will be confronted. No, Paul bots have insisted from the very beginning that it's all about delegates, the delegate strategy, which means hijacking GOP conventions and seizing delegates despite massive primary and caucus losses. Before the Paul bots start protesting, this strategy is completely legal. If the Romney campaign gets caught napping, the Paul campaign has every right to take advantage. This is called organization. This is process. Yet at some point, the Paul bots will be confronted with their own bullying. They can hijack a nomination, but they cannot force people into supporting their movement unless they take the mutation strategy utilized by Bashir Assad in Syria. Really? You'll compare us to Syria? Their powers of persuasion simply do not work. Many people at this point have pretended to support Ron Paul in front of them just to shut them up and end the conversation. Now, if the power of persuasion doesn't work, like he said here, how are we getting all these delegates without media attention? Why do we got all these headlines, online now forced to talk about us when none of them predicted that Ron Paul would win any of these delegates? Instead, the exact opposite. But yet, we can't persuade no one. That's exactly what we're doing. We're taking over the Republican Party. Now, for a brief moment, let's indulge in their delusional fantasies. Let's assume that Ron Paul successfully pilfers the nomination for Mitt Romney with the uninspiring and ethically bankrupt you snooze, you lose approach. Ron Paul is now the GOP nominee. What happens next? And he said something here that made me really think, because this could actually go down. I never thought about this, and I don't think I've heard it from anyone. It says here, the GOP's finished. The Paul bots have threatened to walk if they do not get their way. Well, now the 90% anti-Paul vote, much of it every bit as hardcore and passionate as the pro-Paul vote, will walk, which is ridiculous. Is they're not hardcore or passionate. How is the other 90% supposedly from him hardcore and passionate? If we're winning the caucuses, that makes no sense. That means they're not hardcore or passionate at all. They're not making it out to the conventions to overtake us. So it's a flat-out lie. It says here that Romney would run an independent campaign as the candidate of the Conservative Party. Ron Paul would have an entertaining convention where his supporters would show up. Then the conservatives would simply have another convention or skip it all together and just get down to business. Ron Paul would turn the GOP into the Libertarian Party. So basically, after reading that, I thought about it, man. That's something that they could do. Literally, it's just basically say, you know what? Forget the GOP. We're going to dump the GOP in the Republican Party. This is the media, basically. And just keep on talking about Mitt Romney and have him go to another party or create another party. Who knows? But that is very well the case. Now that he said that, it made me think that they could very well try and pull something like that. Now, don't get me wrong. It'll definitely hurt them for people to have to hear that Ron Paul is the Republican nominee, and they have to admit that Mitt Romney is no longer the Republican nominee, or shoot, in this case, even in the Republican Party. And so that would definitely hurt them. But in the end, they might just keep on pumping Obama, make it seem like a 4-person race or something now that we have a Libertarian candidate. So they're not going to – who knows what they're going to do. But they're going to do everything they can to try to keep him from getting the nominee. And then if he does get the nominee, I think that they're going to attempt to have more candidates to dilute his vote, or, like this guy said, have Mitt Romney go to another party, which is crazy, man. They got so many tricks up their sleeve. It's ridiculous. Now, I've been telling people I think, I don't know, it's possible maybe that Ron Paul might just get the nominee. And the reason why I say that, and this is just a theory out there, it's just a guess. I ain't saying I would bet on this, but I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't be 100% surprised if Ron Paul just got the nominee and they didn't even have this whole ordeal at the convention. The only reason why I say that is because I don't think they want to be exposed that bad. We got so many people protesting the convention on the outside. Once they start getting protested on the inside too, I mean, what are they going to do? It's supposed to be a media event, celebration, and all that. Remember last time they had it? Ron Paul had to go have his own convention because they don't want a problem. They don't want that. And so I don't know. If he does come and just get the nominee before the convention, I guess I'm going to have to say I told you so. But I wouldn't put my money on it. They're going to do everything they can to stop it and maybe get Romney in another party. All right, but we'll be back after the break. I'm your host, Paco. You're listening to Occupy the Media.
Hi, I'm Dana, and I started out as a Ron Paul fan just like you. And now I'm a full-time volunteer leader at our Ron Paul headquarters in Venice, California. It starts with the first thing you hear Ron Paul say that is different than all the other politicians and that you just happen to agree with 100%. Next, there's a point where you realize that you agree with everything he has to say, and then, well, what's next? If you live in Los Angeles, you're lucky enough to be near